Hi peeps, I want to review last week's lecture in preparation for this Friday's meeting. Last week, we learned that the most important strategy for the summary question is to utilize the introductory summary sentence. Let's call this ISS. By just examining the sentence carefully, you can find correct options without even resorting to the passage. In the TOEFL, there are 3 types of introductory summary sentences in terms of clues. Explicit clues, implicit clues, no clues. For explicit clues, the introductory summary sentence contains such keywords as many factors or several elements. For implicit clues, the sentence summarizes an event or process. And for no clues, the sentence defines a term. Let's examine each type. The introductory summary sentences with explicit clues are the easiest to answer since all you need to do is to find 3 elements that support the introductory summary sentence. These are examples. In moving from water to land, ancestral plants overcame many obstacles in order to survive. For this sentence, all you need to do is to find 3 factors that relate to challenges and overcoming the challenges. This is another example of this type. Many factors have contributed to the increase in desertification in recent decades. For this sentence, all you need to do is to find 3 factors that caused desertification. You should be able to find all 3 choices without reading the passage. Let's look at this question. So you need to look for sentences that talk about some obstacles and how plants met the challenges. Let's look at each choices. Clearly, A does not talk about an obstacle, so A is eliminated. B talks about an obstacle, instability, and explains how plants met the challenge by developing adaptations, so we should keep B. C does not talk about an obstacle, so C is eliminated. D talks about some challenges, how to support their bodies and how not to get dried out, and explains how plants met the challenges by undergoing structural changes. E talks about a challenge, how to reproduce without water, and explains how plants met the challenge by creating a way of reproduction without water. F does not talk about an obstacle, but it does talk about overcoming challenges. So it is kind of related to the introductory summary sentence. Now we need to use our magnifying lens, that is, critical thinking, to see whether F is true. With critical thinking, we can immediately tell that F cannot be true. The opposite should be true, right? That is, plants prospered by becoming very diverse, not less diverse. Just using our critical thinking skills, we can easily eliminate F. So the correct choices are B, D, and E. Now let's look at introductory summary sentence with implicit clues, which usually are about an event, phenomenon, or a process. We should look for sentences that support the event or process. These are example sentences with implicit clues. It was only after the Portuguese court moved to Brazil that significant progress toward Brazilian independence began. Between 600 BC and 400 BC, Athens changed the distribution of political power between the aristocracy and ordinary citizens. For these sentences, we need to look for choices that talk about how Portuguese court was instrumental to Brazilian independence from Portugal, how ancient Greeks changed their government forms from aristocracy to democracy. This method alone might not be sufficient to find all 3 correct choices, since some of the options might talk about some facts that support the introductory sentence, but the facts are false. So you do need to check the passage if you can narrow down to 3. Let's look at this question. So we need to look for sentences that explain how Portuguese court helped Brazilian independence. A talks about Brazilian merchants revolting against Portugal. Since A does not talk about how the Portuguese court helped Brazilian independence, A is out. B clearly talks about how Portuguese court helped Brazilian independence, so let's keep B. C talks about how England became the economic force in Brazil. Since C does not talk about how the Portuguese court helped Brazilian independence, C is out. D talks about something relating to the Portuguese court, but it does not talk about how the court led to Brazilian independence. Instead, it talks about the Brazilian-born Portugal people's reaction to the court, so D is out. E talks about some essential details that helps us understand how Portugal court became instrumental to Brazilian independence. Even if we have no idea of the history of Brazilian independence, we can infer that if Prince Pedro remained in Brazil, Brazil would gain political legitimacy. So we should keep E. F clearly explains how the Portugal court was instrumental to Brazilian independence. So we keep F. So correct choices are B, E, F. Now let's look at the third type, no clue. These are usually a definition of a thing, phenomenon, or a concept. These are examples of the third type, clueless type. The camera obscura is a darkened enclosure into which light is admitted through a lens in a small hole. As it is currently used, the term El Niño refers to a strong and lengthy disruption to the normal pattern, blah blah. Okay, so these sentences define camera obscura and El Niño, so we have no idea how the passage would develop other than the fact that they are about camera obscura and El Niño. For this type, we need to find topic sentences from the passage. In a later lecture, I'll show you how to find topic sentences quickly. For this Friday, let's start with minor details as clues. I hope to see many of you there and then.